Now, here's your host for AHA Business Radio, Allan Hirsh.
Good evening. Welcome to tonight's show. Tonight is my once-a-month spotlighting show where I'll be meeting with and talking to 4 CEOs and business owners in the Baltimore area. My guest tonight will be Chad Snyder, president of Route 3 Labs, Greg Benfield, president of Benfield Electric, Jason Schwartzberg, president of MD Energy Advisors, and Scott Melliman, president of ProMed. And my first guest in this first segment is Chad Snyder, president of Route 3 Labs. Well, Chad, welcome to the show.
Hi, Alan. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. Glad you could be here. My first question that I ask every guest is, what motivates you to get up in the morning and go to work?
This is exactly what I want to be doing. This is what I'd be doing if I didn't have a company or mechanical engineering is what we do. Well, engineering is what we do, and I'm a mechanical engineer. So I love building things. I love taking things apart. I love designing things and working with the tools. So it's basically my playground.
So tell me a little bit and tell the audience a little bit about Route 3 Labs and really what you do.
So Route 3 Labs is a product development and engineering company. We help our clients turn ideas into prototypes and prototypes into finished products. We primarily work in the medical device industry, building devices like surgical implants or a new method to insert a feeding tube under, at the bedside. And so we work with new technologies. We're always developing new things, and that's really a lot of fun for us.
So how did you're a mechanical engineer, you said, but how did you get involved in such a business?
Well, my grad school was at Hopkins, and so I was working on medical robotics, and from there I went to a company that was doing product development and really taking off in medical devices. And so about 6 years ago, I started my own company, Route 3 Labs, and we've just been focusing primarily on medical devices. And I didn't really plan on sticking in that industry, the vertical, but it's really been successful, and we've really enjoyed it.
So have any of the products you've developed actually gone to market yet, or?
Sure. Yeah, we have, in product development, it is relatively small number that make it all the way from soup to nuts. So, but some of the products that have gone to market it's an easy sit is the name of it, and you take it with you if you have it's for like elderly people that might have trouble sitting up, and when they go to a restaurant, they are worried that they don't have arms on the chair. So they bring the Easy Sit with them. They put it down. It has arms that fold out, and you can sit, and your arms are right there. It's convenient, and it's available on the market. So
it's almost like with the folding booster chairs that you see sometimes for kids, but this is really
anyone that's using it probably doesn't want to be recognized as having
I understand that
analogy, but yeah.
But this is also probably much more sturdier when you're dealing with adults rather than 20-pound kids.
Exactly. Another device we've been working on is just the device to insert a feeding tube. That's going through FDA approval process. We're getting documentation and things all in order, and that should be out soon. But
so why, how many companies are there out like yours out here in Baltimore? And I would think in the medical business with the hospitals we have and the healthcare quality that we have, I would think there's a pretty big demand from the research being done from Hopkins and Maryland and all of the other hospitals. And I don't mean the MedStars, the LifeBridge. I'm sure there's a lot of, particularly in the medical schools, a lot of research going on in medical. So how do they find you versus somebody else?
Well, a lot of our business is by word of mouth. We do have competitors, naturally, but our customers are excellent referral sources. We get a lot of repeat business, and we are just out and about, and we get a lot of word of mouth referrals from people who know us, vendors we work with, suppliers, and customers who really like our work.
That's great. Just want to remind everybody I'm talking to Chad Snyder, president of Route 3 Labs. If you have any questions or comments, please give us a call, 410-481-1300. So you've been doing this now as your own company for 6 years.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've had to make some decisions along the way to get to where you are. So what are some of the major decisions, one or two of the major decisions you had to make along the way that turned out right? And I always like to ask one of those major decisions that didn't work out the way it was planned, because we learn from not always succeeding.
Sure. I've definitely made some missteps in the way. Things that went right, I started the company out of my house and was working by myself, and that's a pretty successful model. It worked out well. One of the decisions that I made was to expand and grow the company, hire engineers to work with me, and to move out of the house into an office space and a workshop. And it was challenging in that finding people. Now I have to find more work for all those people and to support the new office space and things like that overhead. But it was a great decision, I think, for the company and for me, that I'm not working alone, and it really allowed for growth in the company.
So, and on the other hand, a decision you might have made that didn't turn out the way you thought. If you can't think of it right now, that's fine. But for those out there that thinking about business, the only person that never did anything is a person that never made a mistake is a person that never did anything.
So, off the top of my head, nothing's coming to me. But I will say that I will readily admit that not all my decisions are the right decisions, and we've made missteps. And I think they're not coming to me because I choose not to dwell on them. I choose to focus on how to fix those quickly and get around it. And I don't let obstacles like that get in my way.
So you look at it as a challenge to fix and improve, so it might not happen the next time.
Sure, exactly. Nothing is as bad as it seems, and you can make it into every challenge into an opportunity.
Yeah. So where do you want the business to be 6 years from now, or take 4 years, when it's 10 years old and you've been doing it for 10 years? Where do you want the business to be?
Well, I asked myself that several years ago, and my answer was to get to having a really great workshop and a bunch of great engineers to work with. And I've achieved both of those. So in 4 years from now, I'd really like to improve our capabilities, expand the number of people that are working with us, expanding some internal projects, and just developing, increasing the number of customers that we get to work with, because we love working with all our various customers and the projects that they're working on, turning some of those into reality. It's really just a great experience. And
I'm sure it is. Having myself worked in a creative industry, you're taking an idea and making it into a workable product.
Yeah.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun, and it's very rewarding.
So what's the biggest challenge to you of achieving the next step, those goals the next 4 years?
The next step, making the opportunities happen for new customers, and really the finding things to do internally. So I've had the goal of doing internal projects, and the biggest challenge is that I can see all the things that are going wrong, but it also means I can decide quickly whether it'll fail or not. So I guess I'm my harshest critic. So I see an idea and an opportunity, and then I find 50 things wrong with it. And I really, we'll get there. We'll find something.
Very quickly, as we have to go to the next commercial break in a few seconds. Talking to other business owners, small business owners, what's something that you would recommend to them that they understand before they go into business?
Well, it's certainly challenging. I don't think anyone would hide that. But the ups and the downs, I find that really what helps me is to look at the downtimes as, when business isn't going well, those are the downtimes. When as opportunities to grow, as opportunities to build the business. And then when things are just rocking and they're up, then don't rest on your laurels, because it'll never end. Because it it'll end, and but you just have to ride those ups and downs and not let it get you down and not let you
good.
Long term.
One last question. If any of the listeners want to reach you, how can they reach you?
Well, my website is Root 3 Labs, root as in square root or tree root, ROOT, the number 3, LABS.com.
Well, Chad, thank you very much for being here. When we come back from the commercial break, I'll be talking to Greg Benfield, president of Benfield Electric. Later in the show, I will have the AHA Trivia Contest. I'm Allan Hirsh of Allan Hirsh Advisors, and this is AHA Business Radio on CBS Sports Radio, 1300 AM.
Now back to AHA Business Radio, creating AHA moments for business, by business, and about business. Once again, here's your host, Allan Hirsh.
Welcome back. My guest this segment is Greg Benfield. He's the president of Benfield Electric. Greg, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I'm glad you could be here. The first question I ask every guest is, what motivates you to get up in the morning and go to work?
I think what motivates me is just how different each day can be, and I go in, I don't know what I'm going to face, so it's definitely not very boring day to day, the same thing in and out. So
how did you get started at Benfield Electric?
Some can say I was bred to be in Benfield Electric. My father started the company in 1968. I was born in 71. And I always showed a general aptitude for math and science, so my parents always said I would be perfect to take it over from them.
So you went into the business eventually?
After I graduated as an engineer, I went in 1994 and worked as a junior estimator / engineer in training.
And then a few years later, your dad decided he wanted to retire.
Yeah, in 2000, my dad retired, and I took over in 2001. And
so you've been building the business ever since?
Yes, yeah. Every year I tell them it's been so many years, and I haven't run into the ground yet.
And that goes through the great building recession that we had in 8, 9, 10, and 11. So you were able to survive that.
Yeah, we had to change our model a little bit. We had to cut margins. We had to get aggressive, but we were able to weather that storm. And really, it wasn't until about 3 years ago that we saw full recovery in our business.
Well, so what exactly, I mean, you're an electrical company. What exactly do you do and the kind of customers you have?
As a company, we mainly do light commercial, high-rise residential, and multifamily residential hotels. And then we also do tract homes. And our customers would be Envy, Ryan, Ryland Homes, Whiting Turner, Harkins, Bizzuto, all the major players.
Mm. So what would you say that your customers say would differentiate you from your competition?
I think there's a couple things that differentiate us. One, we have definitely a value-added product. We offer services like value engineering, design help. We catch mistakes, but probably what really stands out is our stability. We've been around for so long. We're trusted. And I think it's that trust that gets us those jobs in and out.
So so how do you execute on the trust? How do you deliver? You had a couple of value propositions you mentioned, but a lot of companies say you can trust me. How do you really deliver on telling, and because it's in the execution, you can tell people how you do things, but until you do it.
Well, and that's true. It's your last project. It's your last project is what builds the trust. So when you deliver on that one project and you do what you say you will do, and when you mess up, you fix the mistake that you made, and you're there to stand by the product after it's over, that's when the general contractor will know that they can trust you. And I think that's a big key for them, because if they pick you to be their subcontractor, and you mess up and you fall apart, it reflects badly on them. So when they know they can trust your work and your performance, they can sleep easier at night.
Well, I'm a firm believer that in most businesses, if it's only about price, you're going to get what you pay for.
Yeah. Yeah, and in our business, that trust and that quality gets you to the table, and price will still push you over the finish line. But you have to be invited to be able to make it. But we think we can offer both trust and price competitiveness.
Yeah. Just to remind everyone out there, I'm Allan Hirsh of Allan Hirsh Advisors, and I'm talking to Greg Benfield. He's the president of Benfield Electric. If you have any questions or comments, give us a call, 410-481-1300. Now, and the whole idea of, and you talked about it before the show when we talked with the other guests, how you also work not only with the general contractor, but you try to work with the developer to make sure you're adding extra value. So they're recommending you because they know that they can trust you to do the work.
Yeah, exactly. We try to get in with the developer right away while they're with their design team so that we can help control cost with the design. We try to, since we've done these over and over again, we've tried to use the tried and true method. And by doing so, we build a trust not only with the GC, but with the end user. And we feel that's important.
So over the past, 23 years, I guess, that you've been running the business, your business, what, 50 years old?
I've been running it for 17, but I've been there for about 23.
About half of the 50 years. So during the 17 years, I'm sure and particularly over the recession, you had to make some difficult decisions. What's one that it ended up didn't turn out the way you wanted to turn out, and what did you learn from it so you wouldn't do it again? Hopefully you wouldn't do it.
I think, my toughest decision was back in the heart of the downturn was laying off about 30 electricians. And that was the first time ever in our company we ever laid anybody off. But one of the decisions I did that I regretted was in the heart of the downturn where we needed jobs as much as anything. We dropped our prices at very low margins to get a good job or two. And then about 2 months later, the activity started to pick up, and we could have picked up other work, but we were full. And I always went back to my mentor saying that, if you take a job too low at one point and you cut your numbers, not only do you set precedent, but you miss the opportunity that comes along a little bit later. So if I had to do that over again, I wouldn't have panicked as much.
But you wouldn't have panicked and cut your prices as much.
Yeah.
Well, and obviously you've learned from that because the business is continuing to grow.
Yes, it's we're having our best year yet.
Oh, that's great. So with a couple hundred employees, how do you translate and communicate to your employees this culture of the value proposition and trust that you want to instill with your customers? How do you instill that within your own business and employees? I
believe in letting my employees to manage themselves and not to micromanage them. So a lot of times it's a lot of education and re-education. And when they get to a point of a tough moral decision of which path to take, is it the easier path? Is it the right path? And usually they'll come to me, and that's when I try to emphasize what our role is to, we might lose money on this job, but they will remember that we stood by our word. And I think that's the important thing. Well,
it sounds like from that you allow your employees to make decisions.
Yes.
And if you have to fix them, you fix them.
We try to. Yeah, we try to.
And so that you've created a culture of trust within your customers. One last question, really next to last question before we go to the next break. If you were talking to other business owners or people that want to be entrepreneurs, what are one or two hints or topics you would suggest they should think about as an entrepreneur? I
would invest in your people first and foremost. I think you can't afford not to. But I would also understanding your clients and the trends that they have and staying in front of it. So in our business, when the housing market fell apart, we shifted, we went into government work. So it was always knowing what the client needed at the time or what the market was at the time. So that you just can't stick with status quo.
So you're always challenging the status quo and looking at what might be there for you to do.
We're always adapting to the environment that's there.
That's great. Last question. Greg, how can people out there reach you and your company?
Well, you can check out our website at benfieldinc.com. That's BENFILDINC.com, or you can call us at 410-879-1485. Again,
I want to thank you very much for being here on the show. Later in the show, I will have the AHA Business Trivia Contest. As I go to commercial break, we will have a traffic update, and when I come back, I will continue continue the show with talking to Jason Schwartzberg, president of Maryland Energy Advisors. I'm Allan Hirsh, and this is AHA Business Radio on CBS Radio 1300 AM.
Now back to AHA Business Radio, creating AHA moments for business, by business, and about business. Once again, here's your host, Allan Hirsh.
Welcome back to the show. My guest this segment is Jason Schwartzberg. He's the president of MD Energy Advisors. Actually, there are two parts of the business, but I'll let him explain that in a minute. But my first question, every guest is always, what motivates you to get up in the morning and go to work?
Sure. I usually pop up pretty early right now, Alan. I have a 1-year-old at home, so she gets us going pretty early. I have a 9-year-old as well, but the 1-year-old has got us up at the crack of dawn. And
if not long before that.
Sure. I just like building things. I've really enjoyed building this company since 2010 over time, and the ultimate goal is to leave a legacy for my 2 children. Okay.
So explain a little bit, because as you've explained to me, MD Energy Advisors really has 2 areas of operation.
Sure.
So why don't you explain that to the listeners?
Sure. So we have 2 sides of our business. We have a consumer-facing side that really focuses on the residential market. That trades as PointClickSwitch.com. It provides one-stop shopping for people interested in lowering.
And that's Point Click Switch.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, PointClickSwitch.com. It provides one-stop shopping for folks who are interested in shopping their energy provider. So that's the first part of the business you mentioned. The other side of the business is really commercially focused.
Well, let's talk about the consumer focus first of all.
Sure.
So a lot of people even today don't know that energy service is unregulated.
Sure.
They think they get their BG&E bill and their energy is BG&E.
Sure.
But number of years ago now, that all changed. So explain that to the listeners so they can understand how you then serve them from the consumer point of view.
Sure. No, it's a great question. So you can competitively shop for your energy just like you shop for your cable or your internet. There's alternative energy providers out there that you can purchase your power from. You still will get your power delivered from the utility. You still write your check to the utility, and you still call the utility if you have a power outage. All you're doing is comparing the rate that the utility is charging for energy supply, versus the other options in the marketplace. And Point Click Switch aggregates those competitive offers in the marketplace, and the idea is it allows you to point click switch your way to energy savings.
Okay, so you might be choosing an alternative supplier of the electrical energy, and it might be a different price whether you use I remember looking at it myself. Depends upon if they use a certain amount of solar versus all traditional coal, and but there's all these value and pricing structures that you make it easy for the consumer to decide what energy supplier they're using.
Yeah, on the residential side, it's even cleaner than that. It's off-the-shelf pricing. So the utility will, in Maryland, typically price semi-annually. So they'll set their prices twice a year. So you could look at the rates that we have from our competitive options on the market. And I think it's important to note, these are very large companies like a Constellation or a Washington Gas or WGL. They're not, Allan and Jason's energy company at the end of the day, providing competitive options. And as you articulated, you can shop based on price. You can shop based on term. We also have renewable options as well, where you could potentially be buying power that is, generated by wind or other means.
Yeah, so that you can put your social issues partially in the decision of the energy supplier you get.
Sure. And there's also right now a nice value proposition too. You're probably looking at 10 to 15% savings versus the supply rate provided by the local utility.
And then you pick the rate for a certain amount of time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so on our site, there's really 3 levers on the residential side. There's rate. Is it fixed or variable? All of our options are fixed rate options. It's for a defined period of time, 6 months to 36 months typically. And is there a termination penalty if you were to terminate the offer, just like your cell phone contract? Our goal was to make it very efficient, to provide a one-stop shopping comparison platform that in a transparent manner highlighted, again, rate, term, and cancellation fee. If any.
Okay. Well, before we talk about the commercial, just want to remind the listeners that I'm Allan Hirsh of Allan Hirsh Advisors, and I'm talking to Jason Swartzberg, president of MD Energy Advisors. And if you have any questions for him on energy or questions for me or any comments, give us a call, 410-481-1300. So let's talk a little bit about the commercial end, the other end of that dual focus that you have.
Sure. So on the commercial side, it's much more like your financial advisor versus on the residential side, it's off-the-shelf pricing. On the commercial side, we take much more of a financial advisory approach. So putting together a custom package to address your energy spend based on your goals and objectives and associated risk tolerances. So
can you explain that? I mean, for the listeners, try to narrow that down to a little bit simpler language. I would appreciate it.
Sure. So most of our clients are in the commercial real estate space. So they're paying a rate per kilowatt hour if they haven't made a competitive choice out there in the marketplace. So we really have a dual focus, which is to lower the rate you're paying per kilowatt hour through our energy brokerage platform, and then lower the number of kilowatt hours that you're using or your consumption through our energy efficiency platform. And the goal is really lower total operating expenses for your building to improve your net operating income. When I was using the financial advisory example before, we can adjust your purchasing strategy based on your risk tolerances. So if you said, "Look, I'm risk adverse. I'm more of a fund investor, retirement fund 2040. I put my money in, and my portfolio is allocated." To meet those risk tolerances, we can help you do that.
So you can do an extended contract, so you know exactly what your energy costs are going to be per kilowatt over a period of time.
Sure.
Or if you're more risk tolerant,
Yep.
you could do it shorter periods of time.
Correct.
Hoping that it goes down versus going up.
Sure.
So it's just like if you buy a stock or buy a mutual fund. It
Sure.
depends what the goal is.
Yep.
But the other part of that, which really intrigues me, is the efficiency. So
Sure.
talk a little bit about how companies and how you work with companies to reduce their energy consumption, because you reduce the energy price by 10%, but if you can reduce the consumption by 20%,
Sure.
you've now compounded the total savings.
Sure. Yeah, so there's a couple of kind of low-hanging fruit in the energy efficiency business. There's lighting, there's HVAC, are the two areas that we really start initially. But if we do a holistic, review, we can layer in lighting, HVAC, window film. There's a lot of options out there in the marketplace, and there's rebates out there in the marketplace to offset some of the upfront capital expenditures for some of these options. But lighting projects, improving from existing technology to LED, you could see less than a 2 or 3 year payback on some of those implementations. And we try to take a concierge approach where we'll take you all the way through, help you with the rebate paperwork, and should you need it, we have financing solutions as well.
So great. So you've built this company over the last 7 years.
Yes.
Give me an example of something you did that we and I'm a firm believer the only person that ever did anything, never made a mistake is someone who never did anything.
Sure.
So along the line, a decision you made that could have been done better and what you learned from it.
Sure. I think it's a great question. I think one of the things we probably should have done a little earlier on is become a holistic provider. We were in our early years, we were really focused on strictly brokering the electricity and natural gas itself. It's still our core business. We still do a lot of it. But to the extent that we can provide holistic savings for our customers through attacking both sides, the commodity and the efficiency, it's just driving greater value to our customers. So we've been intentional with the energy efficiency probably for about the last 18 to 24 months, layering it into our offering, and I would like to have done that a little faster.
Okay. Well, thank you. I do want to thank you for being here. I do have to go to the next commercial break, but before I do that, how can the listeners reach you? And I guess there are two different websites for the commercial and one for the consumer. So why don't you give them both?
Sure. So the residential is pointclickswitch.com. So that's pointclickswitch.com. And the commercial is MD Energy Advisors, ADVISORS.com. So MDEnergyAdvisors.com.
Well, thank you very much, Jason, for being here. When I come back from the break, I will have the AHA Business Trivia Contest. The winner will receive 2 movie passes and a gift certificate to the Cobb Cinebistro at the Rotunda. And then I will be talking to my fourth guest, Scott Melamed, actually not president, but the COO of Pro MD here in the Baltimore area. I'm Allan Hirsh, and this is AHA Business Radio on CBS Sports Radio, 1300 AM.
And now, with tonight's AHA Trivia question, here's your host, Allan Hirsh.
Well, welcome back. Tonight's trivia question is, who is the founder of the Sundance Film Festival? Again, who is the founder of the Sundance Film Festival? Give us a call at 410-481-1300. And the caller with a correct answer will win the 2 movie passes and a gift certificate to the Cinebistro at the Rotunda. This segment of the show, my guest is Scott Melamed. He's the president of Pro MD. And Scott, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Allan.
It's my pleasure. First question I ask every guest is, what motivates you to get up in the morning and go to work?
Ooh, that is a good one. For me, I think it's all about respect, and not just respect for myself, respect for, my patients and clients, for my staff, my business partner, but also respect for, all of the people that it took to get me where I am, right? I think everybody has those people in their life that really mentored them. So for me, that would be Dennis Sheridan, who was really the first healthcare executive I ever met. I went to Hopkins, where I had Lawrence Aronheim, who kind of convinced me that it was okay to go to Hopkins and be a business person and not be a doctor. And then in my profession...
My father graduated in 1941 with the business at Hopkins.
Good to know.
Okay?
Yeah.
So you're in good company.
Good. And then lastly, one of the strongest mentors I ever had was Bill Leffert, who really kind of showed me that servant leadership and that you can be a good guy and a good executive. So I get out of bed every morning for those people, Allan.
Well, that's great. So how did you get started in ProMed? And what is it in fact do?
Sure. So, I had a little bit of a non-traditional background. I'm the son of 2 police officers. My mom went into healthcare. I always thought that I was going to go into healthcare. My life took me into strategy consulting, where I would later go on to start a business with a doctor in the cosmetic surgery space. While doing that, I trained my current business partner, Dr. Gavrila, who founded ProMD Health. He and I had a vision and a mission for what an ethical, strong cosmetic surgery, aesthetic dermatology, lifestyle clinic should look like. we put our heads together, and now this is our third year working together at ProMD Health.
So great. So one of the things that where I found out about you was from the Better Business Bureau. You're one of the recent torch winners for outstanding, outstanding ratings and response from your customers and consumers. So I want to congratulate you on that.
Thank you.
So what differentiates you in a matter in serving and dealing with your customers and the consumers that brings you to the point that you can actually win that kind of an award?
Sure. I mean, I'll tell you, never did I think that I would be lucky enough to consider myself a torch winner, because people don't really think about aesthetic medicine, Botox and fillers and business ethics in the same vein too often. But that was one of the things that was most important to me, when I took over, was to establish a firm set of core values, really create a patient experience. And that's what sets ProMD Health apart, is that it doesn't matter, whether you want to look 1 year younger, 10 years younger, whether you're a major consumer, whether it's your first time, you're going to be treated the same. Experience. That's what we drill into our staff. That's what we drill into our vendors. It's all about making sure that you're comfortable, the outcome that you want is going to be achieved, and that at the end of the day, you're happy.
So how do you do all of that? And how do you build a culture and I don't know how many people you have working for you?
We have about 20 now.
So how do you create that culture that where each one of these employees understands it and understands how to deliver on the culture that you're creating in your business?
Sure. So I lean a lot on the methods that I learned in strategy consulting and getting to kind of travel around and see what the best businesses do. And even though they have, 500, 5,000, 500,000 employees, they all employed the same practices, right? Strong core values, commitment to a mission and vision, frequent team meetings, and really kind of give everybody an outlet to submit ideas, right? So the experience that I have, the experience that you have, the experience that our reception team has, very different, not only in their personal lives, but in their business lives and interacting with the consumer. So what we've done is we've created outlets for every single staff member to kind of pose new ideas to leadership, and that trickles down into a culture of success.
So explain, now that we've talked about some of the philosophy, actually what in fact do you talk about dermatology. So what are some of the processes and services you provide in, I guess it's cosmetic, I don't know all the terms, but
sure,
cosmetic,
anti-aging medicine.
Anti-aging medicine.
Yep. So, basically what ProMD does is we look at things from a natural aging perspective, right? So as we age, we lose volume, right? Our fat pads disappear, the bone density goes down. Traditional surgeons will treat that by pulling and cutting. So what ProMD says is, if nature's taking away, why would we take away more, right? So we take an opposite approach and we restore the volume that you had using substances naturally found in the body or various materials like Juvederm, Restylane from some of our main vendors. Of course, Botox for wrinkle relaxing, various laser treatments to reduce sunspots, which is particularly popular in the coast where people are on boats or at the beach a lot. And then we also have a wellness and hormone balancing component so that you truly can look and feel younger at ProMD Health.
Just remind the listeners out there, if you have any questions for Scott or myself, or you think you know the trivia question, which is who is the founder of the Sundance Film Festival, please give me a call at 410-481-1300. So you and your partner have been doing this for 3 years.
Correct. So Dr. Gavrila started the practice in 2012. I joined in 2015.
Okay. And in the 3 years, obviously there have been some decisions you've made, and we talked about, I always believe that the only person that never made a mistake is another person that never did anything.
That's correct.
So I'm sure you've made mistakes, as we talk about before the show. One of the things I like to present to the listeners is some information. So can you talk about one of the decisions you might have made in the last 3 years that didn't turn out the way you wanted it to turn out, and how you learned from it and how you corrected it and moved forward?
Absolutely. So, I think every business, especially small businesses, are approached by every vendor under the sun to try and say, okay, I'm going to get you X amount of new customers, or you need to hit on this latest marketing trend. And there was a while where, George and I would entertain nearly every conversation we would have and say, let's give it a shot, right? So we would try all these new marketing tactics instead of sticking really to our core competency. And then one day it kind of dawned on us, let's see what we have in-house, right? So we spoke to all of our people, said, what do you think about these ideas? And one of our receptionists spoke up and said, well, I have a degree in marketing, and this is something that I think I could really undertake and kind of redo some of our social media. And she was younger, a bit of a younger demographic. She had some really great ideas on how we could reach younger crowds. And this was a resource that I had in-house, didn't have to pay for. She really wanted to do the work, would make her a better, happier employee. And instead, we were shelling, tons of our resources, which, obviously any amount of money that we can save is not only good for the business, but good for our patients because it affects our pricing. So, by kind of looking internally and finding this resource in-house, I was able to save our clients money, I was able to save the business money, and I was able to make one of my employees happy.
So, and I hope the results were better than you were getting.
Absolutely. She's still on board with us. She's doing a fantastic job.
Is she still the receptionist as well as the...
She is in the process of being promoted to our director of marketing.
Okay.
So her husband's in the military. She's going to be moving out to Colorado soon because he's been reassigned. And we've decided to retain her as a remote marketing director. That's
great. So sometimes you don't know what you have in your own place.
That's right.
You don't rely on them, and you find out you have what you need right in house. And we just don't. So you see the tree for the forest.
That's right, and that's that became one of our core values: is do the most with the least. So rather than seeing problems and throwing resources at them, we now are much better at looking internally and solving our own issues.
Yeah. So one last call out there. If anybody wants to try to answer the trivia contest, who is the founder of the Sunset Film Festival? And if anybody remembers just a hint, the movie of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, that's where it came from. So please give us a call. You got a minute. Give us a call, 410-481-1300. One last question before we head to the close of the show. You're basically an entrepreneur. You've done this for 3 years. What is one thing you would recommend to other people, entrepreneurs, either in business or going into business, that they should consider or do to make their experience better?
Sure. I think the most important thing that anybody can know is what they don't know, right? And be prepared to ask for help, seek mentorship, look at people who are successful, look at companies that are successful, and really build that culture of success. It doesn't matter if you're a small business with 5 employees. You can still have a firm commitment to core values and ethics and an operating model and an organizational chart so that if you do grow to be a 20, 50, 200-person business, you're ready. You're not retrofitting these methods that successful people have shown us work.
So you start from the beginning.
Right. Build a strong foundation to grow upon. Don't take the easy way out, and always learn as you go along.
Well, Scott, thank you very much for being here. How can our listeners reach you and your practice?
Sure. You can find us online at www.promdhealth.com, or feel free to email me personally. It's Scott@ProMD. That's PROMDhealth.com.
Well, again, I want to thank you for being here and spending the time with us this evening. For those who didn't call in, the answer to the trivia question, who's the founder of the Sundance Film Festival, is Robert Redford. Robert Redford, who played Sundance in the movie Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. I want to thank my producer, Joe LaCroix, for being here and making the show and the sound get to you all out there. I also want to thank my videographer who is here this evening, Larry Wilner of LW BizFlix. Please join me next Tuesday at 6 p.m. when my guest will be Doug Wendt, president and founder of Wendt Partners. I'm Allan Hirsh of Allan Hirsh Advisors, your host. To reach me, you can call 443-977-4500 or visit my website, which is allanhirshadvisors.com. You can also listen to all of the past shows, and I think I'm just up to about 200 of them. I can't believe it. At the website ahabizradio.com. This has been AHA Business Radio on CBS Sports Radio 1300 AM.